So now you got your first job teaching. And I'm going to talk to you about high school and things you can do. By the way, if you're a current student or going to be a student in high school, this also applies to you. So it's not just straight up young teachers. This applies to everybody. In fact, it applies to people just in life. You can learn a lot about teaching, selling, um, anything that has to do with promoting knowledge. You can learn. You can learn about this. Um, so you have this big, a bunch of curriculum now that you need to teach, and pacing is very important. You've already built culture in a classroom. You follow JRod's instructions and coaching uh, issues, and so you've built some sort of a culture. You're vulnerable. You open the classroom up to everybody. You're trying to make a kind of a calm culture, a culture that people can be comfortable in, not necessarily so comfortable that they aren't going to be nervous or have some anxiety, because I mean, taking tests create anxiety for a lot of people, including myself. So that's going to happen. You're not going to have, students that are like, oh, kumbaya every day. No, no, no. There needs to be some anxiety created by you, and it not needs to, but will. And it's a healthy situation. And look, humans, we have to deal with anxiety. We have to deal with issues and conflict and try to overcome, because we can't just have a handout the whole time, or have someone say, no, you can retake it. Oh, you can stop and take a break. The real world, if you're taking a flying test, you can't be in the middle going, can I stop and take a break? You're flying. Driving test, same thing. You're going on the highway. Can I stop and take a break? No. So the real world is very different than what's going on in the classroom. So anyway, now you have created the culture. Now you actually have to teach stuff. And I got to tell you, as a young teacher, if you're just being honest, as long as you're a day or two ahead of the students, you're good. There's nothing better than knowing what you're teaching tomorrow, as far as calming you down, as far as creating a sense of, calm in you, because you drive everything that goes on in your classroom. And if you're just running around like you don't know what's going on, you don't have an answer, you don't know what you're doing, you ratchet up the tension in your classroom. And that's going to cause some problems. For those of you that are in sales and you get some time in front of a future possible client, and you're all nervous and freaking out and you don't know your facts, you're out. You'll never get a chance to sell your product or service to that company ever. And you've probably closed the door maybe forever, because every time you call them, you're going to be the guy that didn't know what he was doing. You're going to be the girl that was all freaked out, didn't have any answers, and was all nervous and all that. There is something to be said about being prepared. And yeah, you're going to have to put in some hours, especially your first couple of years teaching, because you have to be an expert at your curriculum. You have to be an expert at what you're teaching. Now, how you go about it in your lesson planning and your pacing and your checking for your understanding and all that stuff, that's different with everybody. And that's something that you're going to have to use your personality. You're going to have to learn what works for you, what works for your student, or all your students. And that's going to help you keep you going. All right. Because you got to get from box A to box B to box C before you can do box D. And it all kind of builds on each other. And so students have to understand box A first before they can move on to box B. Now, you can't control everybody. Now, there's a myth that, we can get everyone to learn everything at every time. No, because you have kids that won't show up to class, or if they do show up to class, they're not prepared, and they're not mentally prepared. They're not physically prepared. They're whatever, didn't have breakfast, so they're thinking about food. They're thinking about their girlfriend, boyfriend. They're thinking about what's going on at home. There's all kinds of stuff. And they have never been taught to overcome that stuff on a daily basis. Maybe that'll come later. I don't know. We try, but it's expected that the teacher just overcomes everything. Well, that's pretty much impossible. But we have to be able to create a situation where you take complicated knowledge and break it down so someone can learn it, not necessarily easily, but so they can learn it. And if they can reteach it, they've learned it. That's kind of one of those things. It's big for me. Can you reteach what I'm trying to teach you? If someone's saying, I can shoot a free throw in basketball, and if you can go teach somebody how to shoot a free throw in basketball, you've learned how to shoot a free throw in basketball. So if you understand the how a bill becomes a law and all the aspects of it, and you can go to somebody that's never even heard what a bill is or a law is, and you can teach them, you've learned it. And that's kind of what taking tests are, or giving tests. This is from the teacher's perspective. By the way, I will do one from the student's perspective and students' responsibilities too. I'm just going to stay with teachers' responsibilities here. You're not responsible for getting those kids to class every day. You're responsible for creating a situation that is academically safe for students and taking complex information and breaking it down so they can understand it. That's what you're responsible for. And following the state curriculum guidelines, which all states have. That's what you're responsible for. And there's another thing. The individual education plan, or IEP. And there's one for many of your students. Hopefully your school organization has a situation where you can understand what they need. It's usually extra time on assignments or tests because maybe they don't process things as fast as everybody else. Sometimes it's preferred seating where they need to sit closer to the teacher. Okay, you have to know those by law. Now, I've seen situations where people haven't prosecuted because the teacher didn't know. And I've learned that many teachers don't know, but you should know what students who are on an IEP, what they need, what their needs are, who they are, and be able to show that you've followed those guidelines. There are also other plans, like they call them 504 plans in Oregon, maybe other places they call them different plans, where a student might have a physical issue. Maybe there's an allergy. Maybe there's diabetes or something like that. So they have those too, that you have to know who those kids are too. So there's a lot of different categories of kids that are in front of you. And then you have to know who the English language learners are and what they need help with. And then you have to know who's got certain things with different, coaches or different situations with different administrators and such. So there's a lot of different things that go into knowing who your students are. But let's go back to the curriculum. Pacing is important. Look, you and I know that if you're back to, go back to the 70s, 80s, 90s, when you had someone lecturing you for 90 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever, and totally uninteresting, they're just monotone. You can watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off and see that. The Bueller guy, the Laffer curve guy. Yeah, he's a brilliant actor, by the way. But there are teachers like that. I actually had one in my master's program. He was the K guy. I started paying attention to his K's rather than listen to what he was saying. So I had these little tick marks. And I'm like 23 years old. No, I'm older than that. Shoot, I'm like 27 years old. And I'm doing tick marks on the K's. And we had 3-hour classes with this guy. I still don't know what he taught me, but I just remember him, okay. So kind of everybody has like a tick kind of ums. People talk about ums. They'll say things like, they use like incorrectly a lot, some people. And there's others. And teachers have them. We all have them. So it is important to know what yours is because students will know and they might make fun of you behind the scenes And what that does is it just takes away from what you're doing. That's the challenge. So you need to figure that out. And we all have them. So what is it? What's yours? So then it comes time to, you've done your lessons, you've planned ahead, you're maybe 2 or 3 or 4 days, sometimes a week ahead. I try to be about 4 weeks ahead of what I'm doing. I kind of know what I'm doing pretty much every day. I mean, if something happens in the news or I have a guest speaker that just, hey, I can do that, I can shift, but I pretty much know what I'm doing for the next month. But I'm in 22 years in. I'm talking to you first or second year teachers. It's a relief to know what you're doing over the next 3 or 4 classes. Trust me, it takes your stress and lowers it. But eventually, you're going to have some sort of assessment, whether it's a project or a test, the vaunted test. How do you write a test? Well, things you have to think about. Number one, make sure that you've covered what's on the test in class. Maybe not exactly, but you have covered it. Now in college, I know it's kind of a trick to try to trick your students. And look, in paragraph 7 of a 300-page book, I'm going to ask them what this was. I know, but that's not really fair to the student. That's just you getting your ego involved. If you want to be fair to the student and assessing what they've learned and what they haven't learned, you need to ask fair questions. And you need to have covered it more than once in class. Okay? Now, here's the other thing that shocked me when I started giving tests. When I give a test, I put a question on there that I kind of know I know the answer to, but I kind of know what they're going to say. That's what I'm looking for. Can they show me they learned this certain thing, right? But what I will say to you as a young teacher is that you are going to get answers like you have never thought of before. And a lot of times they are like out of this world, crazy in your mind answers. But you know what is crazy to you, to me? Sometimes they're right. Sometimes they actually answer the question you asked and not give the answer you thought what they would give you, but give you a random answer, what might seem like random, but it actually answers the question you asked. You're like, where are they coming from? You're going to have 35 or 40 students in front of you, and you might get 30 or 35 different answers. It doesn't mean they're all right. Doesn't mean they're all wrong either. Be prepared to give partial credit. That's why sometimes I'll make each question out of 2 points so that I can give partial credit. If it's a short answer, it might be like 5 points, so I can give partial credit, or 3 points or something, instead of just all right or all wrong, Something to think about. That's another thing. You got to think about your grading and grading scale. How important is the definitions? How important is concepts? How important is spelling and grammar and conventions? Do you even grade grammar and conventions? Those are kinds of things that you need to think about when you write a test. Make sure you have enough tests for everybody. There's nothing worse than running out of copies of a test in the middle of the test, because you can't just leave and go make copies, and so it's a challenge. These are things you have to think about. You have to think about your classroom dynamics. It is, probably the eternal issue is cheating in class. You got to think about, how could a student cheat right here? And try to alleviate that. That might be just the proximity, just walking around the classroom. What I do is, there are 3 different tests in every given test. So the one next to each person is different, looks exactly the same, but it's different. And I can tell when they cheat, because they give the answer to the next person that makes no sense on theirs. So that's one way you can do it. That means you need to know your curriculum back and forward. You can't fake that. A lot of times it's easier just to give one test to start out and just try to master that test. The next thing you got to think about is, do you grade notes that are taken? Do you do like a notebook, or how do you show kind of on a daily basis? Do you do exit tickets? There's all these new fandangled things that you can do. And some of them are effective. Some of them aren't. They just have a big name, and probably someone paid a lot of money to sell them to somebody, but they really aren't effective as far as teaching and learning. But you need to think about that. You need to think about when someone leaves your class, what are they taking away? The other thing is, you need to be organized in your classroom. And by the way, this is all true for sales too. Everything I'm saying is true for sales. You need to be organized. If you have an inbox, use it. If you now have an outbox, use it. If you pass out graded work, then be consistent with it. Students need consistency. Where do they turn something in? Do they just throw it on your desk? Well, that's a problem. They need one place to turn something in and one place to turn it back to them. And you need to organize it, and you need to be consistent. And by the way, students don't need a bunch of information when they walk into your room about what they're doing. I try to keep that away from them because I don't want them drawing conclusions or jumping ahead. I put limited stuff on the board, just the big ideas. And I know sometimes they want you to do writing sample or goals and learning targets and all this stuff. Kids don't look at that. Maybe your AP kids do. Maybe your advanced kids do. Most kids are just trying to get through the day. And they look up and they go, oh, Constitution. Okay, we're going to learn about the Constitution. Oh, civil rights. Okay, we're going to learn about civil rights. Oh, World War I. Okay, they don't need to know that, oh, what caused World War I? All this, they'll get it. They'll get it in your lessons. That's the goal. The goal isn't for them to just write down what's on the board and go, I'm done. Keep them in suspense a little bit. And reevaluate your lessons every time you do them. Every time. Don't wait. If it worked in period 1, awesome. Do it. Try to do it exactly the same in period 2. If it didn't work in period 1, change it for period 2. Try something new. All right? The students are fairly consistent. It's you that's not consistent, or can be. Just something to think about. All right? But the big idea is students need to learn your curriculum, how to be a good citizen, how to be good to each other. They need to learn work ethic and critical thinking, and those aren't generally in the books. And I'm sure parents are agreeing with me right here because I'm a parent, and that's the big thing. Yeah, I want them to know, how to be a good citizen, but I also want them to know how to think critically and not just okay, and just believe everything they hear. And you're the person to teach them that. All right? Always remember that. Keep your head up. Be positive no matter what. And be consistent. Kids need consistency. They need to be held accountable if they mess up. And the rules have to apply to everybody, and they need to be consistent. All right. This is what teachers are responsible for in the classroom, especially young teachers trying to get through the day. So I hope you learned something. There's more to come. Please like and share this content. And I've got other videos here on YouTube and on X, Twitter, that I'm going to be promoting. So thank you very much. Go get them today. JRod loves you.